he's been released to us for a while, at least through the playoffs, and with the understanding that he's not recruiting players, he's not, doing stuff that's nefarious, supposedly.
Yeah,
Uh,
another thing I was wondering on the topic of Weiss being allowed to coach through the playoffs, will that enable him to interfere any further with future recruits or recruiting or
Supposedly no, but
supposedly no?
here's the thing: you're also not supposed to interfere with players during the season. That happens with every team. You're also not supposed to talk to a coach during the season about other job openings. That happens every season. Um, there's really no way to me for the NCAA to police that unless you just pick and choose random schools. Otherwise, they would have to have a crew that was probably operating 24 hours a day. Uh, if you looked through, I mean, you'd have to look through every player's text messages. I mean,
Yeah,
every coach's phone. I mean, that kind of stuff goes on all the time. I mean, there'll be, these, 4 and 5 star guys are laying in bed and they get a text from Kiffin or Saban. They're not going to run to the NCAA and go, "Hey, look what he did."
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess
But
ultimately what you have to remember is now that in the era of NIL, everybody's basically their own free agent to some extent.
that's
So
right. And every year, for all intents and purposes, every year, every player is an unrestricted free agent every year.
yeah,
And that is if they, it's strange. Any player, if they decide to, could decide that they want to play at 4 different schools during their college career, and they can do it. And if they, for instance, get a medical redshirt, they have a 5th year of eligibility. Some people, Trinidad is going for his 6th year of eligibility right now if he gets it, which means if he had wanted to, he could have played at 6 different schools for an entire season.
yeah. I hope Trinidad stays with us. Uh, I
Right
don't know
now,
if
it doesn't
he's
look good as
yeah.
far, but I'm hoping that we can convince him to stay for sure.
I'm kind of surprised. Well, I guess he's used when you get used to a certain coach, maybe that's part of it. Um, but I figured he'd be one to stay, but who knows?
He's, I get I get the sentiment behind wanting to do that. He knows the playbook.
Yeah,
He knows Charlie Weiss. He knows Lane Kiffin. He knows what they expect. He knows the offense. It's not uh, something that he would have to relearn for his last year of eligibility.
yeah.
Um,
When you put it that way, it definitely makes
it's
sense.
you know, I hate for a player of his caliber to be going somewhere else, especially to an SEC rival. Um, I mean, it would be strange watching him suit up in purple and gold and come back next year to Oxford and play against us.
Yeah,
But that's the world we live in these days.
yep. I guess I guess this is how it's going to be from here on out. Now in this era. Um, Another question that I was wondering, and I don't know if anybody knows this yet, but has there been any talk about um who's going to be Pete Golding's offensive coordinator?
I've heard a few names mentioned. Uh, I can't recall their names right off the top of my head, but East Carolina offensive coordinator seems to be a hot commodity. Also, the offensive coordinator from Georgia Tech is supposed to be pretty good. I'm not sure if any of these people have been contacted by Golding or Ole Miss. However, I have heard their names mentioned as being uh, names that would be desirable to take over that role.
This is next season. No.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you know anything about their play style? Like, are they?
I don't. In fact,
I was going to say, I wonder if they're going to be like quick pace, like what we were doing.
I know they're looked at as being pretty good minds as far as offensive plays go, but I don't. I'm not familiar with them because honestly, I haven't watched a game of East Carolina, and the only reason I have watched any bit of Georgia Tech is because they have played SEC teams this year, and I've seen some highlights. In fact, for a while, well into the game, I mean, Georgia won it handily, but for a while, Georgia Tech kept it close the other day, playing Georgia.
Mhm.
And last year, I think last year they were fairly close to making the playoff.
I guess that's I didn't even think about that, but that's probably another pretty big rivalry, huh?
Georgia
Between those
Tech,
2.
yeah.
Yeah.
In fact,
What is that one called?
it's strange. I don't know what they call that, but it's strange that in the very beginning of the SEC, Georgia Tech was a founding member, and they actually left the SEC to go to the ACC.
Georgia Tech did?
Yeah.
Ooh, I bet they regret that.
Oh, absolutely. You would have to
It's
think.
odd.
You'd have to think so.
How do you know when that, like, how long ago that was?
When did they leave?
And when was it formed? Like, I wonder if this was
In fact, I'm not even
18
sure it was called the Southeastern Conference at the time. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it was in, like, the 1800s or something.
No, I don't think it was that long ago, but
Early 1900s, eh?
Georgia Tech left in 1964
Oh, okay.
due to a disagreement over the conference's 140 rule, quote, it says, which limited the total number of football and basketball scholarships per year.
Well, that's sooner than I thought it was gonna be. I expected it to be a little
earlier than that, yeah.
Mhm. Huh. So in the 60s. Okay.
After that, they played as an independent team for a while, kind of like, Notre Dame never has joined a conference. They're independent. And then they joined the ACC. They're in the ACC right now.
So if you don't join a conference, does that mean that you're not held to the same rules per se? Like you can't get fined, or how does all that?
No, you don't. Well, to me, it has been an advantage for Notre Dame.
I was gonna say I would think it would be for sure.
Well, they don't have a conference championship to have to play in every year. They don't. They can basically play whomever they want for 12 games now,
hmm
and they're not limited. They don't have to play the same difficult teams every year. I think there's certain advantages to it. However, technically, you're not guaranteed a spot in the playoff as a independent. However, we know there's Notre Dame bias,
Yeah.
so they're going to be given a pass on a lot of things.
Yeah. Notre Dame and Penn State seem to be.
Well, I mean, let's look at it right
seem to have a
now.
lot of bias in their favor.
They have the same record as Texas does right now. They're probably going to get in, and Texas probably is not.
Yeah.
Because we have a bunch of teams already in from our conference. I mean, there's people right now arguing for Alabama to get in with 3 losses
hmm
because of the teams they beat. I get it. I get the argument, but I just don't see the, plus if they were to play Georgia as they're going to this weekend for the SEC championship and lose, they would be 10-4.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people arguing for Ole Miss to be put out because of the Lane Kiffin thing. So,
hopefully, this coaching setup of having an established crew puts that to rest. We will know tonight when the rankings come out whether or not Ole Miss has fallen any, and then next Monday night is the selection for the teams in the playoff.
yeah.
That's after all of the conference championships this weekend.
What were you at before this?
Number 6 right now.
I guess now it's just time to hope that Weiss and Pete can pull it together. And
Well, I don't know how far we can go. We have a pretty strong offense. Defense is suspect in some areas. We've given up some passing touchdowns that really shouldn't have gone. little weak there to me.
Yeah.
Um,
I was going to say, I know I just asked you about the offensive coordinator, but does he have anybody in mind for defensive coordinator as well? Or?
Right now, he's going to handle it. Now, I don't know if he's eventually going to get somebody that's going to basically take over for him, run his offense. Run his defense. But normally, if you bring in a defensive coordinator, you let them run their defense. But I think, and there are head coaches that do this. Steve Sarkisian at Texas has been calling their plays from the field as head coach. So we'll see. Golding likes to be in the box off of the field. I haven't seen a head coach be head coach from the box and just call plays, but I assume that it can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they'll figure it out.
I mean, these days, everything's done by headset anyway. It doesn't really matter to me, I don't think, where you are. The only thing it would keep you from doing is running up to the referee and calling a timeout.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and they got people that can do that. But.
Yeah. Another thing that I was reading up on about him is that he's only ever coached on the defensive side of the ball. So
right. Well, this will be his first venture into the head coaching role. But some people make the transition good and some people don't. It just, to me, it depends. You look at it this way. What is a rank below colonel?
Major.
Okay.
Well, you've got two different colonels actually. You've got 06 full bird colonel, which is like their insignia is the eagle.
Right.
And then you've got lieutenant colonel, which is an oak leaf.
All right. Let's say you were a really good major. I mean, a really good major. Everybody wanted you on their base. And you have an opportunity to move up to colonel. Would you say, no, I like major, I'm going to stay here?
Or I don't know of anybody. Well, I'm not saying that could never happen, but most would accept the promotion.
See, I think I view that as the same way with a coordinator. Everybody wants to be considered for head coach. Not everybody's head coach material.
Yeah.
And there's probably majors that aren't colonel material.
Oh yeah.
But but they want the chance to do that, and
then after colonel's general, so there's a whole lot of colonels that aren't general.
Right,
material.
right.
Well, it's not even so much that there's people that can't do it, which there are some of those. It's that as you go higher and higher, the spots are fewer and fewer, so you're competing against, the entire military potentially.
Well, Charlie Weiss Sr., his father, called offensive plays for years and years for the Patriots under Belichick, right? Then he left and became head coach at Notre Dame. He was not a head coach, was just not a head coach, but he's a very good play caller.
This is his dad you're
right.
talking about?
Mm-hmm. Really respected offensive mind.
Yeah.
Just was not a head coach. Some people don't think that Gus Malzahn was a good head coach. He was at Auburn for a while. He was a very good offensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Hugh Freeze, who was at Ole Miss for a while, I thought he was a decent head coach for us. He was a decent head coach for Arkansas State. He was a decent head coach at Liberty when he left. But he was an offensive play caller.
Yeah.
Before he moved to, some people can make that transition, some people can't.
Yeah, Freeze. A lot of people were saying Kiffin built our whole program, and I would fight back against that a little bit and say that despite what you think about Freeze, I know he did some bad things. To me, he was actually the one that first started really making us more powerful. Because
Hugh Freeze?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Under him, we defeated Alabama twice.
Look, it took me a couple of years. It took me a couple of years into Kiffin being here to believe that he was better than Freeze.
Yeah.
Freeze was a very good coach, and we started recruiting nationally when Freeze was here. There's a lot of firsts for us with Freeze. He did a very good job of putting us on the map,
Kiffin never did beat Saban. Freeze beat Saban
2 years in a
twice.
row,
Yeah,
back to back.
I didn't know it was back to back.
Yeah, 14 and 15. And in fact, the first year was at Oxford. The second year was at Alabama that we won.
Yeah, crazy.
And
that's when people really started paying more attention to us. After
in fact, it may be Kirby Smart. I know Kirby Smart has. I'm not sure if. I don't think that Texas ever has either. So I think that Kirby Smart is the only one of his assistants has beat him.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But anyway, some people just can't make that transition.
Yeah.
That are very good at the coordinator role, but they're just not very good at it takes a different kind of mind to be a head coach. You really
Yeah.
got to be a good field manager in that.
Well, you're not just worried about play calling now. You're worried about recruiting, a relationship with the athletic director.
That's right.
I mean,
it's really kind of an administrative role more than anything else. You got to be good at putting a staff together. Whereas if you're a coordinator, you're only concerned with one thing, and that's doing your job. If you're hired to be a defensive coordinator, you're all about the defense. That's it. That's all you care about. I think that today, and I think that really Saban brought in that style of having a lot of staff and being less hands-on, but you make sure that you take care and get the right people in the right position for those different coaching roles, and that's what makes a good team. And I think he kind of put that style of coaching out there.
Yeah. And speaking of being hands-on, make sure you like and subscribe. Helps us out a lot with the algorithm. And in case you were wondering what the heck have we been talking about, Chris and I are Ole Miss fans, so we're talking football a little bit. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening. And
we'll get to see Monday night whether or not they still allow us to be in the playoffs, and whether or not we actually host a game, because that will be a big deal in Oxford to host a playoff game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's another thing that's going to be irritating if this whole drama cost us, that ability to host one.
If there are, and we found that out a couple of years ago, if there are player injuries that are significant that can keep you out of the playoff, it kept Florida State, an undefeated Florida State team, out of the playoff one year. And if you have coaching changes, that can be a reason for either dropping in the poll or not being placed in the playoff. They've already said that. So we'll have to see. We haven't had any player turnover. All of our players are there. We don't have significant injuries.
As long as, it'd be nice to be able to host, but as long as we're in there, I'm okay.
I think that now that we have a staff together, plus we have our offensive coordinator back for the playoff, I think that's
we're
going to be
shape.
Yeah.
Well, to sort of switch topics a little bit, talk about financially related things. How recently did you read some more into Rich Dad Poor Dad?
This afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were cramming it in. I should have said something earlier. I was kind of going back over it too. What caught your attention the most in this next section?
There wasn't a big transition yet. I'm still, he's talking about when he hired his son and his friend to work in his company, and he did it for several weeks, and he got mad that his father wasn't helping him or wasn't teaching him.
Yeah.
And he was told his friend that he was going to quit. And his friend said that Dad said you would do that, and when you said that, to have you come see him, and he got mad about that. So we're to the point now to where he's asking him some specifics about making money, but he really hasn't told him what he wants him to do yet. We're to that point to where he's just asking him questions, and he hasn't really told him anything yet.
Yeah. Since I've been all the way through it a few times,
And about how to make money work for you, not to work for your money.
mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, what he's trying to do right now is he is trying to explain to both his son and to Robert, who's the author of the book. He's trying to get them to go through the normal processes that a normal employee would go through. So he knows that, in the real world, an employer is going to pay an employee something, and then eventually that employee is going to get fed up and try to get a raise.
Or leave.
Yeah,
leave or get a raise, get
Yeah.
mad, that kind of thing.
And this is a cycle that happens at every place of employment. That happens over and over and over again. And so right now, all they can see is, well, you're not teaching me anything. You're just paying me crap. And, but the lesson that he is trying to teach them, and the reason that it's so difficult to do that in a classroom, is because he's trying to teach them that, hey, when you get fed up, you have to be bold enough to come to the table and state what your issue is, or leave and go somewhere else. But, yeah, so I think he's trying to gauge their determination, and he's, like you were saying, expecting that frustration to lead to them coming back to him and asking for more money or whatever. And yeah, so that's sort of where we are. The financial world, a lot of things in finance and in wealth building are just very difficult to explain in a classroom type setting, because the business world is a lot of either success or failure. And unlike school, where you pretty much have to succeed all the time or you fail, in business, especially at first, you're going to fail like probably 70 to 90% of the time. You're going to fail until you find something that works and brings you success. So, business is, in a lot of ways, to gain experience and to learn in business is the opposite of how you would do it in school. So,
well, I'm interested in getting a little bit further in the book to see what he says, because regardless of what your attitude is about how to do this, my mind kept going to, and I don't know if we'll get there in the book yet about this, because I haven't got that far yet, but you got to have money to make money.
yeah.
And if you want your money to work for you, like he said, my mind kept going, well, you got to have money to make it work for you. So I'm interested to see where he goes with it.
Yeah. That ends up being the case a lot of the time nowadays, but it didn't used to always be the case. But now that cost of living so much higher, we pretty much are in you got to have money to make money. Or if there is an exception, you've got to have friends to make money, or you've got to be able to talk somebody into hiring,
or somebody to give you a break,
Yeah.
or somebody to get you a leg up so you can get started. Now I've seen stories like that too, where somebody, had they not been given a break, had they not been given some help by their parents, by a mentor, by somebody who just wanted to see how they would work out in a certain job, and they all of a sudden became a success and made everybody money. I've heard stories of it like that. However, some of them, if they never got that kind of break, would have never had that opportunity,
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to have you do sort of have to have a break from somewhere, but it doesn't have to be a big break. You've got a lot of people that cut grass, for instance, and if you play your cards right cutting grass, you can make $100,000 plus easily.
And I have always, and I honestly, throughout my life, I have always heard this scenario as well. Now, this is not discounting God. I mean, if if God wants to bless you with something, he will.
Mhm.
However, I had a sociology professor years and years ago that told us from the very beginning. And of course, as a kid, you don't believe this. You believe that if I learn these certain things, I'll be a success. And he told us, I was a teenager still when this happened, and he said, "You'll find out more often than I'd already heard the phrase that it's not what you know is who you know."
Yeah.
And I kind of wrote him off. I was like, "Oh, he's one of those that believes that." But years and years of experience down the road, I have found more often than not that that is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
It's definitely true in a lot of instances. Now, to me, the only exception outside of somebody giving you a break or you knowing somebody, the only other option or hard work with starting, a simple business like lawn care or whatever, you have to, especially if you want to get wealthy quick, which most methods that people claim to make you wealthy quick don't, or they're scams, but there are a few that do get really wealthy really quick. But if you want to do it legitimately and not break the law or not do anything unethical, well, that requires you to come up with something pretty much that hasn't existed before. You either have to come up with a new product or a new service that is so in demand that
Or
people
be in the
are,
right place at the right
yeah,
time, or yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Those scenarios of this is the way I like to look at it. Do people sometimes walk up after a storm on a treasure chest? Well, sure they do. I
yeah,
mean, they're few and far between. The kind of things about getting rich overnight is the same way. They just happen to be at the right spot at the right time for that to happen. It's not something they could duplicate,
yeah.
right? I mean, every now and then, like the treasure chest scenario, that does happen.
Hmm.
But how many treasure chests are there out there?
Right. No, a lot of people get lucky, but there are, and I mean, I'm not saying it's a large portion of people out there. I'm certainly not one of them, but there are a portion of people out there like your Elon Musk, or he's just one example. I'm trying to think of the guy's name that started OpenAI, Sam Altman. There's another female that not too long ago, Scale AI. I want to say Meta or Alphabet bought Scale AI from this female entrepreneur, and she became a billionaire basically overnight.
Mhm.
But the reason I bring those up is in instances of really smart people, they I mean, yeah, there's going to be a little bit of luck in there, but for the most part, she studied, she found something that other people hadn't found and was able to sell it for, a billion. But it took a company that was willing to buy it for what they bought it for.
Right.
So, um, yeah,
A lot of companies like that, uh, you know, Google didn't start YouTube.
yeah,
Another company did and sold it to Google. In fact, YouTube was sold to Google for $100 million.
yeah,
And honestly, would I like to sell a company for $100 million? Sure, but look at what YouTube is worth today,
mhm,
compared to that initial investment that they had of $100 million. They're killing it
yeah.
now.
That's typically how it goes is somebody comes up with one good idea or one good service, and then they're like, okay, well, we want to scale or, we want to expand. How do we do that? And like we were saying earlier, it's very difficult for most of us to come up with that genius idea that produces $100 million. So if they were able to achieve that one time, well, now your thought process is, okay, well, we pulled a rabbit out of the hat this time. Can we do it again? Probably not. So now we're going to look to acquire or, merge and or acquire. So how much money do we have? What kind of business can we buy to expand our own
Sure.
business? Or
It seems to me that certain entrepreneurs or certain investors have a game plan that's either like for the long haul, like Warren Buffett,
mhm,
Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, some of these that, get into it forever.
yeah,
Then you have people that, like you're talking about, the family from Oxford that started McAlisters. They made it into something huge and sold it.
mhm,
Then they started Newks, made it into something huge and sold it. There's
yeah,
that kind of model too, of doing things. Um, if you look at it from a long-term standpoint or doing what they did, which to you, would you rather be the guy that made the company big and sold it, or one who's in it for the long haul? What would you rather do?
Me, I'd rather go for the long haul because once you truly understand the economy and business, you understand that you're always going to need money and resources. So even if you sell it for a good amount, unless you're super disciplined and keep yourself to a strict budget, I don't care how much money you generate. If you make $1 billion, but you go out and you buy a private jet and you
No,
buy a
sure,
super
sure.
nice house, I mean, before you know it, well, like we talked about Mike Tyson
Hmm.
buying all the new Bentleys.
Right.
It doesn't take too long of doing that sort of thing to burn up even a super large cash pile.
Yeah, with no other income. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, it would be different if you think of it this way. Mike Tyson had made his $100 million. Uh, what if he took that 100 million and started businesses
yeah.
instead of just spending?
Oh, he'd be a
I mean, you
billionaire.
understand?
Yeah.
You understand that that's like Magic Johnson.
Hmm.
Do you know his story?
I don't know his story.
Business wise, of course, we all know he's got AIDS. He was a philanderer, for years and years as a professional basketball player. But he was, I think it's his wife who was a smart investor.
Hmm.
Uh, he's invested heavily in Starbucks, and I'm talking about from the beginning when they started building stores.
Yeah.
He's part owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers. A lot of his money is in things, but he's a big wig as far as investment goes.
And his wife did all that.
I believe
That's
that she has managed that. In fact, I'll look to see what all he's a part of.
Yeah, I would say if you have somebody in the family that you know has a talent for these things, that's the individual that you need to let take over the finances for sure. If
Yeah.
you can trust them, because not everybody has that skill set for sure.
His portfolio includes stakes in Los Angeles Dodgers and the Lakers, Equitrust life insurance, and minority-owned tech companies, as well as investments in infrastructure through JLC Infrastructure. He was previously heavily invested in businesses like Starbucks and Burger King before selling many of them, it says. So, his has been working for him for sure. His story, as far as being a major public sports figure and making that a success, is far in the minority. Most professional athletes end up broke. Did you know that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
I think it's a little bit better now, but only because of we're surrounded by resources like the internet, and telecommunications and the internet has never been better than it is today. So unless you're just being super lazy, you should, even if you don't have a lot of information yourself or a lot of wisdom yourself, all you got to do is go out there and listen to somebody else, read a book from somebody else, and before you know it, you're up to speed. Another example of a celebrity that, from my understanding, has done well investing is Ryan Reynolds. I'm sure both of y'all know
yeah,
who
I've
Ryan
seen
Reynolds is.
several of his on TV on commercials.
Yeah, he's always on, what's that mobile
Is it
his cell
Mint
phone?
Mobile?
Yeah, Mint Mobile. I'll bet you he's made at least hundreds of millions, if not $1 billion from that, probably.
Right.
Once you have a lot of resources, it's a lot, and I'm not saying you can't build something from nothing, but once you have a lot of resources, all you have to do is not do anything really dumb, and you're usually going to end up being okay. So if you get to the point to where you have $5 million, $10 million, $100 million, now all you have to really worry about immediately is preservation. Not saying that you shouldn't multiply that, and I mean that's the goal, but as long as you don't do anything dumb, you're fine. Um, and
He's owner of Mint Mobile, Aviation American Gin. He and another investor own a soccer club in England.
I figured there'd be a sports sports thing in there somewhere.
Maximum Effort. He co-founded this with another person that's a production and marketing company.
He's got a lot of irons in the fire.
He's part owner in a Formula One racing team.
Wow.
One Password is a cybersecurity company he's invested in. Several things like that. And I know other actresses and actors that, although they may not be invested in companies like this, they're invested in as far as like owning real estate, that kind of thing. A lot of them are into that.
Speaking of real estate, that's another topic that I wanted to get into, because you can go really, and not that you can go really deep in the world of stocks and businesses too, but the reason real estate's important in the investing world is any business that isn't conducted on a website or online, you have to have a physical location, right? So even if you don't own the real estate, if you own a business in a piece of real estate that's owned by somebody else, well, now you've got the liability of paying them rent as opposed to owning the building that you operate out of. And it has become common for people to operate that way, where they operate out of a building that they don't own themselves. But once you really understand building wealth and real estate and the economy, you understand that, take the game of Monopoly, for instance. When's the last time you played Monopoly, like the board game?
It's been a little bit, but I still
Yeah.
know the basics of it.
Yeah. Well, that's how, basically, I mean, it's more complicated than that, but ultimately that's the foundation of our entire economy. Even though people don't want to acknowledge that, because once businesses start becoming a monopoly, people are like, oh, they're too big, we want to split them up. But that is the foundation of our entire economy, is by this, by that, and then somebody else has to live there or work there and has to pay you rent. I mean, that's how it all works. So, you're basically incentivized to buy and buy and buy. And the only thing that's really changed in the past couple of 100 years is now you have to be a little more elaborate with what you set up, corporations, LLCs, whatever. And you have to use these entities to purchase the property. Well, you don't have to, but if you purchase it all yourself, somebody can see your name in a database and they can potentially come and sue you and go after your assets. But yeah, ultimately, and that, what is a property owner typically referred to as, or at least traditionally would have been?
Landlord.
Yep. And now what are the two root words? And I mean, obviously you have land, but then that term lord, right? Let's say 400 or 500 years ago, what was a lord?
Ruler.
Mm-hmm.
The person you had to answer to.
Yeah. But like, let's get a little bit more specific. Like, in what capacity? I mean,
He was under a king.
Yeah.
But I guess kind of like a supervisor, maybe a supervisory role.
You had, I don't know if I can name the entire medieval rank structure, but typically you'd have like a king here, and then like a duke, maybe under the king, and then let's say a count, and then a baron. And each of these are different tiers of lords, but basically what they all would have in common is they would all have some degree of property ownership or land ownership. So if your duke was next to the king, that duke, I would imagine, is going to have thousands of acres at minimum of land.
Which that has always been strange to me, and that you say that, it makes sense, but that those roles were not conferred really normally or given to someone. They were earned through inheritance. Like you became a lord because you inherited land.
Yep.
That, which is strange.
it used to be, everything used to be familial and or what's the negative term that people associate with nepotism?
Yeah.
Nepotism used to be the rule of law for like
Yeah.
thousands of years. And I mean, it's important to know that and remember that, because even though now we're in a world of corporations and private businesses, the goal of many people is still to build generational wealth, which typically gets passed down to their families. Now they're going to give some to the church and to philanthrop- philanthropy, philanthropic
That's right.
organizations. You know, you're going to have some of that, but ultimately, and I'm not trying to be ugly here, but people aren't building wealth for other people. They're building it so that they can benefit and their family can benefit.
It takes some forward thinking sometimes on people's behalf, like Michael Jordan's mother. Have you seen the movie? I can't remember the name of the movie. It's Ben Affleck is in it. Matt Damon's in it. Air. That's it. But the story of signing Michael Jordan to a struggling company called Nike back when they signed him.
Struggling.
No, they were. They were probably maybe less than a year from going out of business.
Yep. Well, every
whenever
company just about at one point was a struggling company. I mean,
they signed Michael Jordan to a deal, and part of his deal was he got to have 5% of all the sales that had his name on it. All the Jordan brand clothing, he got to have 5% of that. And people thought he was stupid for doing that, because why wouldn't you just ask for money?
Yeah.
Well, last year, I mean, how long has Jordan been completely out of ball? I mean, we're going to talk about
20, more than 20 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Last year. His 5% from the Jordan brand Jordan brand sales netted him $300 million last year. Now this is 20 years removed from basketball. Now who's the smart one?
Yeah.
You know, the rest of these guys that have been out for 20 years, guess what they're making?
Zero.
Diddly, unless they have another job.
Yeah, people. That's the thing to me that's hilarious about our education. So, well, I say hilarious, but it's really not funny, because our education system just vastly underprepares people for anything of economic concern, because what you just said right there, it's simple math. That's very simple math that anybody can sit down and figure out, and almost nobody does it. This is the sort, and now that's an example that not everybody's going to have the opportunity to earn 5% from a company
Well,
like
honestly,
Nike.
and at that time, that was taking a chance, because you're also saying, I know people are going to buy this brand.
Mm-hmm.
And it became popular. It may not have, but it did become popular.
Yep. And what's that called when you take a chance?
It's a risk for sure.
Yeah, risk. That word, and the education system teaches you over and over again to basically take the sure thing, avoid the risk, avoid the risk.
That's another thing that he mentioned in the book today. This next section that I was in was not being afraid of taking a risk. Yeah.
You're talking about Robert,
right?
Yeah, it's a big part of it, because
well, yeah, I kind of feel like you have to be smart about that too, though. There are things that I've seen people invest in before that I go, I can tell that's not going to work. You know, and by and large, you know, it doesn't. But I think there are things that, I mean, it's, you know, everybody has to weigh their own attitude on whether this is a good risk or not. But in fact, what are some key things that you would look at on whether to take a risk in an investment or not?
Well, so we start off with our word risk, and what I want to add to that is calculated. Okay, so now we have calculated risk instead of just risk. That's a huge difference from just risk, because now we're saying that we're going to be a lot more cautious and much more prepared in how we go about things. So you're asking me what Ask me what you just asked me
What
again.
constitutes, I guess,
A
a good
good
risk from a bad risk?
Yeah. To me, you can look at financial numbers, which we're going to try to do a little bit of today. So you can, with public companies like stocks, you typically have access to at least some degree of the financials. If you look deep enough, you can find the balance sheet, the income statement, and so on. So once you learn how to be well versed in these different financial documents, that helps you to see, if a company is going to continue to grow in profitability and continue to be a good investment, or if that company is, potentially going to die or go out of business. Now, you can still do all the preparation in the world and things can go wrong that are out of your control. There's all that risk is always there.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to calculated risk, notice I never took the word risk out. You're always going to have risk there. It's just you are trying to mitigate the risks as much as possible. Um so a bad investment would be buying a company that or buying into something that you see is dying over the years and they can't figure out what their next source of revenue is going to be. They don't or they're having tax difficulties and they don't know how to mitigate their tax liability. If you start seeing a bunch of bad signs like that, well, maybe it's time to sell your stake and try to move into something else. But
See, what is so interesting about things like we were talking about a second ago is that was a huge risk for Michael Jordan that turned out to be a very good investment for sure.
yeah,
However, they were embarking on something that really had not been done before, and they were kind of the inaugural people into this. And uh, you had to sell him in the beginning. Hey, we think we can sell this stuff. We think if we come out with this shoe, it's going to sell. We think that we can do this if you just let us put your name on it. And that is something that you know those are big risks.
bold,
They are.
very
It is
bold.
bold, and it turned out to be not only good for them, it's good for him too. I mean, Phil Knight is a rich guy today
Hmm.
because he was able to get Michael Jordan to sign with him. Uh, if Adidas, who was one of their main competitors, had been able to sign him, they would have done the same thing. They
Yeah,
would be huge today if they had signed Michael Jordan. But
I won't say his name, but somebody that I know did something that a lot of people thought was a really stupid idea years and years ago. He started buying some land. Initially, he thought he wanted to have some cattle and do the small ranch thing. Well, he started doing some number crunching and some good old boy math type stuff. And he was like, you know what? I got to feed these cows. I don't control the price of diesel. There's so many factors in this that are too risky. This would be a really bold move, but I don't see where the numbers line up. And he said, you know what I can put on this land instead? Mobile homes. And people, were like, oh, those look like trash. You want a bunch of low income people on your land that are going to trash up your land. And he started with one. Next thing you know, he's got two. Um, I don't know exactly how many he has today, but I'm gonna guess more than 50 properties. Um,
interesting.
all generating no less than $500 a month. And it could be as many as 100. And now, I mean, mobile homes is where it started, but now some of those properties are actual uh stick built residential homes. So
Sure.
so some of these things may be written for $1,000 a month or more.
But you're
Um,
still talking about
now it took
around
you,
50 grand a month he's making.
yeah, yeah. Now it took him doing that, and obviously it's more difficult today because land prices and real estate are more expensive. But you know, I say all that to say that so many people are concerned with getting rich as quickly as possible, but you don't have to do that. All you have to do is find a good plan that you know that the math works out well and just build it steadily
Mhm.
over time. Now you can take, and I mean, those really bold moves, like you mentioned with Michael Jordan and Nike, you can take those and they can pay off really big.
But they're much bigger risk.
Yeah, you can also go completely bankrupt
Right.
and
There's
ruin
been plenty of those.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would imagine that Michael and whoever his business partners were able to sort of take a look, like a bird's eye view of what will be the potential demand. Since we're talking about sales, they were like, well, we're pretty confident that people are going to want these items. And I mean, turns out they were right.
Sure.
People do like material things, and especially once you establish collector value to something, that's going to make those things even more appealing to a lot of people.
Well, it
you know?
is there are several things that are unique to Nike. They were innovators in shoe wear.
Yeah.
Uh, several of the different kinds of types of grip on the bottom of a shoe, they were the innovators of. Uh, uh, I think they were the first one to have the little pump action, or no, maybe that was Reebok. I don't know. Anyway, things like that, little niche market that pop up. Uh, if you're able to keep your production or manufacturing costs down, and you're able to get something that people want, that's a lot of money. This is
Mhm.
it's interesting.
And even something as small or seemingly small as like the logo and the branding for a lot of these companies makes a big difference because, not only do people think that their looks and their colors and their designs look cool, but if you had, instead of the swoosh, if you had some goofy logo like you see sometimes on knockoff products, that's going to affect your entire business. If people think that your logo or your brand is goofy, then uh, you're going to be synonymous with goofy.
That's right.
So that's also why a lot of big companies they care a lot about what other people say about them. And that's why you see lawsuits when it comes to, what do you call it when you damage somebody's reputation?
Defamation.
Yeah. That's why you see so many defamation lawsuits and that sort of thing, is because most of the time these businessmen don't even care about their own name once they get so wealthy, but they're like, now you're hitting the company name
Mhm.
and we're taking you to court.
And there
you
are
know?
certain things like, and I looked this up years ago. It has risen slightly, but at the time that I checked, it's still less than $1. But the average cost when I looked it up several years ago, the average cup of coffee, regardless of brand, regardless of make, regardless of what the style is, it cost Starbucks at that time 57 cents to make a cup of. It doesn't matter what kind you ask for. The average cost was 57 cents. It's still less than $1 today. And look at what they're selling them for.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now that's how Starbucks is able to, when you're able to make what 5 or 6 times what it would it cost you to make that cup of coffee, and people are willing to pay that for it. It don't take a genius to figure that you do that a bunch of times in a day and you've made some money,
Yeah. And speaking of that, let's see if Jack, can you put that in that search bar on the stock screener? Type in, I think you can type in SBUX, I think is the ticker symbol for Starbucks. Yeah, click on that first one. Is the screen being highlighted for the view? Okay.
Mhm.
We're trying something new for the first time. We hadn't been screen sharing, so we're trying to do that. So do you
I can
have a
see.
good view of it? You see where it says earnings are forecast to grow 18.54%. Let's scroll down a little bit and see if it tells us what the current market cap is. Click on valuation on the left side. Scroll down. Stop right there. See where it says market cap 96.55 billion. So as of today, and it's been higher than that, I'm sure, but as of today, Starbucks is worth roughly $100 billion.
Selling cups of coffee. Of course, I mean, I know they're all over the world, but
Yeah.
I mean, and the first one was in Seattle, Washington. So,
now let's go down to ownership, which is number 7. I'm just curious if we can see. Oh, somebody's been buying shares in the last 3 months. Scroll down a little bit further. Wait.
One individual.
Oh, well, I'm not going to read all. Well, they might can see his name.
11,700 shares bought by one individual.
He's probably a director. Keep scrolling down. Scroll down. Show more right there. Scroll down again. I was gonna see if we could see that insider right there that bought some. Go back up to where it up further. Right there. Hover over one individual. Now go over to the right, that other icon. Okay. It's not gonna tell us, but sometimes the companies will tell you, or the screener will tell you that this guy's the CEO that bought these shares. This is the CFO. This is the director. You know,
what is the? I'm just out of curiosity. What is the advantage? Is an individual just trying to get more power as far as decision making when they do that, or what's the? Why would one individual all of a sudden buy 11,700 shares of Starbucks?
Yeah, I would say that typically that means, well, there may be certain requirements, you know, for executive staff to, or there may be expectations of them to do deals and or buy.
Are they
more,
required to own a certain amount, or
that? I'm sure. Whoops. I'm sure sometimes they are. But I think there's also when they get sometimes they get incentives and promotions and so on that may enable them to scoop up shares technically for free. But there are times where they may actually be spending their own money to buy more shares. And yeah, it can be used to have more voting power. So you have more say so in how the organization makes its decisions. Or if the company pays a dividend, you might just be buying because you're like, hey, this will help me to build my passive income. Because the more shares I buy,
because what does it say? Look at the price of a share right now.
I think to find the per share price, we got to go back to the valuation. Scroll down. 84.91 is the current share price.
See, you're talking about if they bought it at today's price, they just spent just under $1 million for those shares.
Yeah.
That's putting a lot of confidence in what they think that this company is going to do. A coffee company now, a beverage company that's been around a long time, and there's a lot of competition.
Oh yeah.
So they either know something or they feel like, or either Starbucks is about to do something new or something's up.
Yeah. Well, now let's click on future growth, which is right under valuation. Scroll down. All right, stop right there. Now move all the way to the right side. So revenue in 2028, according to analysts, is expected to be 43 billion a year, roughly. Earnings, which is net income, 3.827 billion. So according to analysts, I don't know how exactly they figure that that's what their earnings are going to grow to, but yeah, like you just said, obviously they think that the company is going to continue to grow and make more money. And so they feel like buying more shares is a good way to spend their cash. And another thing that's really hard to understand when you're lower,
because I know to an investor
Yeah.
that's probably not an expensive stock. It would be to me
Yeah.
if I was buying.
The other thing that makes share prices a little bit confusing and tricky to people is there's a certain amount of shares that are out on float, let's say. So however many shares are out there for people to buy, what I'm trying to say is the the price per share, the PPS, is not necessarily a good indicator of how expensive a stock is. And you might be like, well, why is that? That's what everybody sees. Well, the reason you hear me talking about market cap all the time is because market cap is what gives you the true value of the company. Notice how we said it was like 96 billion or something like that. So to figure out that share price, you want to go and look up that statistic of how many shares are out there in the world. And then you should be able to, I want to say, divide the total shares by the market cap, and it should give you roughly the current price per share. And so I say all that to say you can also have reverse splits and forward splits. So take Tesla, for instance. Not too long ago, as they grew in wealth, if these companies don't split their shares, and Berkshire Hathaway is actually an example. See if in another window, or go to Google on another tab, and let's type in just Berkshire Hathaway stock and click on that one. Now try Class A. See if you can pull up Class A. You see that? Price of approximately $765,000, 405. That's for one share of Class A stock. So Tesla, Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, all those guys would be well, actually, they'd be worse because they're wealthier than Berkshire Hathaway is.
Sure.
Berkshire Hathaway is now like somewhere around $1 trillion, which is good, but Nvidia is like a $5 trillion company now.
Isn't it like you were talking about a minute ago, the market cap, about being the actual value of a company? That has nothing to do with the demand, right? I mean, if there's a demand for a product, the price obviously goes up.
Yeah.
Like for instance, if there was an alternative fuel source today, that was readily available, it was easy to use, it was abundant, you didn't have to wait for it, it was a decent price, and it was half the price of gasoline. Well, immediately overnight, the price of gas would drop, right? Because the demand for it would go down at least by half if you had an alternative fuel source overnight that was half the price. So demand drives up that price too, right? I mean,
oh yeah. Well, I mean, the more demand for your products and services is what's going to help determine what analysts think your future revenue and earnings are going to be.
But it has nothing to do right now with the current value, right? Except, unless overnight the demand changed, right?
Yeah, not necessarily, but typically when it comes to the stock market, that's where I think you've heard me talk about PE ratio before. Sure. PE ratio is what enables you to actually, let's take this window that we have on the computer here and type PE ratio definition in there for me. And let's see what like the Webster dictionary definition is. It says valuation metric that divides a company's share price by its earnings per share. But to simplify that or dumb that down, which I like to do, helps me. To make that easier for most of us to understand, it's basically a valuation metric to what you're talking about. So it's basically saying this stock or this company is this expensive in comparison to their current earnings.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's type in Google. Let's just do Tesla. Tesla's Tesla stock.
Class A.
That just what you got there is fine. Now scroll down. You see 287 for the PE ratio. So technically, and sometimes when you look it up on different search engines and so on, it's a little, it can be a little off. But basically, what that's saying is if you bought a share of Tesla today, you're paying 287 times next year's earnings. To make it even more of a simple example, let's say, you know, a hot dog costs you $1, well, you know, normally, and let's say now I wanted to sell that same hot dog to you for $287. That's basically what we're saying here. So when you have a really high PE ratio, that means that people are buying the stock before that company has really earned that valuation. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So something like Tesla, Elon's really good at getting people excited about Tesla products and look at what we're doing, look at the new vehicle we have, and we're, we've got new charging stations, and
By the way, go back to that
they get hyped.
Berkshire Hathaway stock price there.
They get hyped up to the point where, and this is why crashes happen, and that's why experienced investors know that crashes are always going to happen because, and this is how bubbles happen.
Up at the top. All right. In the year 2000, it was $56,100 for a share.
Yeah, that's because you have the first one he pulled up was BRKB, which is Class B, but as far as I know, Class A has never split. So that's a good example for showing you what a stock would look like if they never did a reverse split or forward split.
And what does that mean?
Let me think of how to explain this. It's a little, this is what people struggle with and what keeps a lot of people from being able to understand the market better. A forward split is, let's say NVIDIA hit which they're past this now, but let's say NVIDIA went from a $1 trillion company to a $2 trillion company. Well, they can leave their share price alone and not split it, but now people are going to, let's say one share's $200,000. Well, how many normal everyday investors can go and spend $200,000 on one share of NVIDIA?
Mm-hmm.
Not many. Like even most billionaires don't want to spend 200 grand on something. So in order to make it more in demand, to make their stock more in demand, well, we need to lower the price a little bit so a wider audience of investors can own the stock and participate in the company. And so that's why these splits happen. So a forward split, once you go from 1 trillion to 2 trillion, would be like, let's say it was a 10 for 1. So now instead of paying $100,000, I mean, it'd be like $10,000 a share. Or if the share was originally $10,000, now it would be $1,000 a share. See what I'm saying? So, so they do those forward splits to try to stabilize and increase demand for the stock, and then they can continue to do that when they feel like the stock's getting too expensive.
Like Walmart stock has split 12 times.
Yeah,
since they started.
If you go and look at Microsoft, Apple, all the top, let's say the top 7 companies in the S&P 500, I guarantee you all those guys have split quite a few times.
But it has always, well, I'm not going to say always. I mean, it has ended up being very good for investors. If you had stock, they have, I mean, I guess if you keep your stock, right, when it splits, you double your stock, right?
Yeah.
And
that means now you have more shares than you had before.
Sure.
Now granted, they get, it looks,
how does it, let me ask you this. I guess this is the way a normal person would ask. Are they splitting because they believe that they're going to get more money in growth that way than leaving the stock where it is? Is that why they're doing that? Like you explained a second ago, is it, if that's the case, then why isn't it to Berkshire Hathaway's advantage to why did they not split theirs?
Well, they did sort of, like it's they have Class A and they have Class B. So I guess I don't know why he decided that they just wanted to leave Class A alone. I guess to them that just helped it look more legitimate. But
Well, in some ways, I guess it hasn't deterred their growth, right? I
yeah,
mean,
well, yeah, in their case, I guess there are a decent amount of billionaires that are willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. But
yeah, who's going to wake up tomorrow and go, I think I'm going to buy a share of Berkshire Hathaway?
Well, but when you have a company that's been around, I don't know how long they've been around, but let's say they'd been around for 100 years. If you see year after year, they have consistent growth, consistent profit, their revenues increase, their earnings increase. I mean, to somebody that's got the mind of an investor or a wealthy person, they're going to say, why would I not park my money there? Because, yeah, you could go buy a Lamborghini or a nice house,
Sure.
but the Lamborghini and the nice house are going to, well, maybe not the house, but the Lamborghini is going to depreciate in value. Insurance is going to be sky high. Why not spend my money on something that is going to be an example of good stewardship and increase my original amount?
Sure.
This.
But think about it this way. And again, I'm not knocking these people that do it. I like my school, Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
They're spending anywhere between $20 and $30 million a year on NIL investments. Okay.
Yeah.
If those people, and again, I know probably some of them have the money to do it because they have invested, but these multi-million-dollar donors every year, imagine if they put that in good growing stock, what that could turn into.
Well, you just said NIL investment, and now it's interesting that people call it that, because what do we know about what investing means, or just the word investment?
Well, you're looking for growth for sure, but in this case, the growth we're looking for is a national championship.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but what I'm getting at is, technically, even though people call a lot of things investing that are not actually investing.
Yeah.
Anybody with a really good financial mind, unless, like you said, they just want to help the school, which there are a lot of them, unfortunately, but anybody with a straight up shark, like the mind of a shark, that's just straight business, you'd be a fool to spend money on somebody's. And people are going to beat me up about this. I'm not saying don't donate to schools, but a business mind is going to say, like, it's a complete waste of my time and resources to give money to this program that I'm not going to get anything from.
Sure.
And it comes off sounding super selfish and self-centered.
And I'm donating millions of dollars to this school because this guy can throw a ball really far.
Yeah.
And it's not even guaranteed he'll be there for the entire
That's
season.
right. You're correct. That's right.
But yeah, people misuse the word invest and investor a lot.
That's right.
They call everything an investment. I bought a new car. It's an investment. Well, how's it going to make you money? So it's a liability. It's not. What you bought is a liability, not, and
it's going to take me somewhere where I can make money.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other problem is we've got so many, clever businessmen and snake oil salesmen in this country that not only do you have a car payment now, but you've got people that have legislated to where you have to have insurance on just about everything. So let's say you have a $700 car payment and now you got a $500 insurance payment. What is that, $1,200? I mean, it's just, you can if you don't learn at least a little bit about economics and business and investing, the world can really tear you down really fast. Now, being in the Bible will help you with a lot of that, but we're such a capitalistic society that outside of prayer and asking God to help you, which that will do you good, it's getting nearly impossible to function in our society without having at least some degree of business knowledge.
Speaking of snake oil salesmen, one of the biggest, headquartered right here in the great state of Mississippi.
What's that?
WorldCom. was
yeah.
up in was over in Jackson just off of 20 there, that coincidentally is owned by the government now, but our state government, that big building there, with all the glass and all.
Yeah.
Anyway, he made off with $65 billion in investments. Bernie Madoff did.
Yeah. Interesting. What's even more hilarious is that his last name's Madoff.
Yeah.
Bernie Madoff with the money.
$65 billion in a Ponzi scheme. What do you call that? Hedge fund.
Yeah. Yep. And was that in the 90s when he did that?
Early 2000s.
Yes,
early 2000s. So early days of computer and internet, I would still call that pretty early days. And especially the technological capabilities that we have with stock screeners and so on, a lot of this stuff is still, I would say, fairly new. Back in those days, most people probably did not have a lot of access to be able to see the different financial documents to see if the company was really making as much money as Bernie and his staff were saying it's making. And that's the beautiful thing about having this technology now is if I told you, hey, my company's worth $100 million, if you know what you're doing, you can go look at my financials if I'm a public company and be like, well, you made $50,000 last year, so how is it your company's worth $100 million? Oh, because you say it is, So I don't know exactly how he tricked so many people into investing with him, but I would imagine he just played off of people's, and I'm not trying to be mean.
Think about this. Out of that $65 billion divided by how many families that may have been ruined.
Yeah.
In that $65 billion, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And don't get me wrong, him and his staff deserve a lot of blame for that, but I would also blame broader society. And like I keep talking about,
well, he's not the first, and he won't be the last.
Yeah, well, and like I keep talking about, our education system doesn't teach people anything about business and economics. So most people, if they don't take the initiative to go learn on their own, they're going to be much more easily deceived. It's the same way with God's word. If you're not reading your Bible and somebody says, hey, this is in scripture, well, you're taking that, individual's word for it. So
he died in 2021. He had received a 150-year sentence.
Jeez. So how many life? I wonder how many life sentences.
Well, I mean, at that time,
like 20.
Sometimes they just give you, and I've seen that happen before. Sometimes they just give you a year sentence.
Is he still alive?
No. In 2021, he died.
Oh, he died
in prison at the age of 82. Largest Ponzi scheme in U.S. history.
Yeah. And not too long ago, one of these, and I'm not using this to bash crypto, but maybe a little bit, but not too long ago, one of these young entrepreneurs that became like an overnight multimillionaire, they figured out that his crypto exchange company was some sort of Ponzi scheme, but I can't remember what the guy's name was, but I want to say that happened. Maybe that was even 2020 or something when that happened.
Oh, there were some, there was one called Safe Moon. I know about that one because I was an investor in that one.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the unfortunate thing. The other unfortunate thing about business and investing, and like we were talking about earlier, taking risks, is for most of us to be able to figure out what we're doing, gain more knowledge, be more wise, we have to make mistakes. So therefore, sometimes we're going to get burned, and getting burned is not a fun experience. But
and even though
just about all of us have been burned.
Sure.
Those that are
it would be really interesting to know as well how many people that invested with him were investing through some kind of financial organization that were financial advisors.
Yeah.
Like the people that do that, would their money have been covered? Would it have been safe? as far as I mean, when you, I mean,
I would say mostly no, because
right.
now maybe up to $200,000 FDI, you know, I don't know, but I would say for the most part, no. A lot
Wow.
of it was unsafe. And who even knows if these money managers were fiduciaries? Because
Right.
anybody that sells financial products that doesn't have the label of fiduciary, he could be selling you whatever he wants to sell you just to line his own pockets.
Sure.
So say all that to say, if you go looking for a financial advisor, look to see if the business is labeled as RIA, which is Registered Investment Advisor. The representatives are IARs, which is Individual Advisor Representative. And that constitutes them having the classification of fiduciary, which what a fiduciary is somebody that's taken a test, an exam, and is legally able to advise you on investments, and is legally obligated to tell you things that are in your best interest.
And has reached a certain level of competency, right? In those issues.
And even though I do not have that title yet, I do my best to be as close to a fiduciary as I can be. Although even I am not yet a certified fiduciary, but I view myself in that role anyway. But there are a lot of advisors and especially insurance folks. And I'm not always just trying to bash the insurance industry, but there are a lot of insurance salesmen that are going to try to sell you life policies, whole life, part life, midlife. Midlife crisis policy. They've got all these different insurance policies that are just guaranteed to take you into retirement and you're going to be good to go for the rest of your life. All they're trying to do is line their own pockets, man. And I'm not saying that sometimes some of these things may be able to work, but the only reason that they work is because they take that money and invest it somewhere else for a higher percentage return and you get the crumbs, you know. And that's best case scenario. They may even put clauses in there that say if you do this, then you don't get to withdraw it, or, you know. You'd probably need an experienced attorney to read through all the legal jargon that they put in there. But say all that to say, if your whole plan was to go do an annuity or some sort of life insurance policy and you view that to be your instrument for retirement, I would strongly encourage you to take a hard look at that and go in another direction potentially. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have a life insurance policy at all, especially if you have a family, but I would not let that be your main instrument of financial security at all, because an insurance salesman typically gets hired in a similar or worse manner as a car salesman. That dude's just there to make the company money and himself. So, and don't get me wrong, investment advisors are that way as well, but at least when you're dealing with a fiduciary, you know that you're dealing with somebody that has credibility and is actually obligated and can potentially be litigated if they don't act in your best interest. But yeah, so people make up all sorts of names for new products that really just invest in things that people have always invested in. It's just that they know that people want to be told that they can get a guaranteed return, but the truth is there's no such thing as a guaranteed return.
That's right.
Banks can fail, the government can fail. Now there are investments that are safer or people view as being safer, but there's no guaranteed return on anything. So hopefully that sheds some light on that. Hey, how long have we been going here?
125.
125. Okay, so we went a pretty good ways. Anybody got any more questions in regards to that?
I think I'm good right now.
Good. trying to think if I had anything else I was gonna talk about. I guess that. Oh, I should have done this way earlier than now. But if you are a content creator yourself, and you're looking for a platform to help you, we use something called Riverside. Riverside is basically an AI producer platform. They help us cut our videos into short clips that we can put on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Facebook Reels. They're also very helpful with the back editing process of when you complete a podcast or a YouTube video. So we'll post a link somewhere. If you're interested, go check out Riverside, follow the link. It'll take you to Riverside's website and they'll get you to sign up. They'll probably ask for your email and so on. And there will be options for paid plans, and there should be an option for a free plan in there somewhere. I would say try the free plan first. But we still to this day use Riverside to help us edit our videos. So shout out to Riverside. Go check them out. But other than that, thank you all for coming today.
Have a good day.
We're good.